There are not just two ways to monitor a commercial building, there are three: spot sensors, fractional BAS, and a full building automation system. Each one solves a different problem at a very different price on a very different timeline. Pick the wrong tier and you either overpay by a factor of 5 or you buy something that can't answer the questions you actually need to have answered. This video is about how to tell them apart and how to choose what's right for your building. My name is Nicholas Napp. I've spent the last several years deploying sensors in schools, municipal buildings, offices, and craft producers. The single question I probably get asked the most is which of the 3 tiers we're going to talk about do I actually need for my building and my particular needs? So let's walk through what those 3 tiers really are, and then explore the decision rule that can help you decide. For a long time, the industry talked about building monitoring as a 2-tier choice. Either you installed a full building automation system, or you put a consumer sensor on a shelf. And that framing was really never accurate, and it actively hurt the small commercial building market. A 50,000 square foot school doesn't belong in the same category as a bedroom with an air things on the nightstand. And it also doesn't belong in the same category as a hospital with a multi-million-dollar Siemens building automation system. Treating those 3 situations as binary choice meant almost every small commercial building ended up with nothing. The 3-tier framework is what the market really looks like in practice. It's also how decisions actually have to be made. Different problems belong in different tiers, and if you lump them together, you're just going to choose wrong. So let's talk about Tier 1, spot sensors. These are consumer to prosumer products, the Air Things, the Aware, Aranet, Kytera, Hobo loggers. There are consumer and prosumer devices that you can buy in places like Amazon and unbox at your desk. And they typically measure something specific in the room that they're in, like carbon dioxide level, or temperature, or humidity, sometimes volatile organic chemicals, VOCs, or particulate matter. They typically cost anywhere from a few tens of dollars to a few $100s, and you can install them in minutes. For a single room with a specific localized problem, they are the correct tool. And this is where people get into trouble. Spot sensors are sold for a building-level problem, but they only answer a room-level question. If your issue is that one classroom has excessive humidity, a spot sensor in that classroom will tell you if that's true. That's great. But if your issue is that your utility bill climbed 30% over the last 2 winters, a spot sensor in one room can't diagnose that. Your question spans the whole building and every season, not an individual room. The spot sensor can't see the rest of the building that you are responsible for and care about. Think of it this way: a spot sensor is like a flashlight. You can light up one small area at a time, but you can't map your entire basement with it. This is a classic tier mismatch, and it's the most common buying mistake in the small commercial market. So let's talk about Tier 2, Fractional BAS. And obviously, given the site name, we're a little predisposed to talk more about this one. But this is the middle tier, and it's the one that hasn't really existed as a named category until very recently. A fractional BAS covers the entire building with wireless battery-powered sensors. The data streams to a cloud analytics layer that turns it into reports and alerts and trend lines you can actually use. It aims for actionable insights. It's not just replicating individual spot sensors. It's a sensor in every zone, every area, continuously over multiple seasons with analysis on top, looking at your entire building. And what Fractional BAS doesn't include, at least on day 1, is the middle 3 layers of traditional BAS. We're not talking about dealing with your field controllers, custom automation layers, and building-wide sequence of operations that takes control of your HVAC equipment. This is a deliberate choice, not a missing feature. Those 3 layers are where the cost and the install time of a full BAS come from. And by skipping them, or at least delaying them, a fractional BAS can install very quickly in days instead of months, runs in the 20 to 40% cost range of the full system, and gives you the thing that a small building lacks: whole building environmental data across every season at every hour of the day. And that allows you to make informed decisions on how to improve your building. And typically, a fractional BAS will also have the ability to bridge to existing controls over open protocols like BACnet when you're ready to do that, but you don't have to do it up front. You can do it in priority order based on what the data says is worth automating. The fractional BAS tier came into existence because the economics of Tier 3 just don't work below a certain building size. It's not a cost-saving shortcut. It's the right-sized product for a specific class of buildings, the buildings that are under 100,000 square feet. And finally, let's talk about Tier 3, the full building automation system. A full building automation system is what a Johnson Controls, a Siemens, an Automated Logic, or a Honeywell install looks like. It's the full 5-layer stack: sensors, wiring, field controllers, automation layers, sequence of operations written for your building, and an analytics layer on top. It automates your entire HVAC system and sometimes other systems in the building too. It integrates with access control, lighting, and fire systems, and it's designed for buildings that can absorb the cost of doing that right. The per square foot costs ranges from about $2.50 to $7 a square foot, depending on the complexity of the equipment and the building. The project timeline is anywhere from 6 to 18 months, and it's highly disruptive. According to NREL's analysis of BAS adoption, 50 to 75% of that total cost is labor. And that math is why it scales well above 100,000 square feet and completely breaks below it. A full BAS done properly in a building that can justify it is the best tool in the category. It can save 20 to 30% on your utility bills. But it's also exactly the wrong tool for a 40,000 square foot library that cannot absorb a multi-million-dollar capital project or a year of construction. So here's the decision rule, and it's actually simpler than you might expect. Start with the question you're trying to answer. If the question is about one room, if it's localized and short-term, buy a spot sensor. You'll be in great shape, Tier 1, and you're done. But if your question extends to the whole building, if it requires comparing zones and rooms against each other, if you need multiple seasons of data that you can actually compare, and if it involves things like compliance and capital planning, you are in Tier 2. Buy a fractional BAS. But equally, if you've got a campus of over 100,000 square feet, a dedicated facilities engineering team, and a capital budget and an appetite for multi-year capital projects, and your day one requirement is automated building-wide control, you should look at Tier 3, the full BAS. These tiers are not ranked by quality. They're ranked by scope and by expectation and what they can deliver. A spot sensor in the right context is going to be better than a fractional BAS because it's faster and cheaper for that single question. Equally, a full BAS in the right context is going to be better than a fractional BAS because it controls as well as measures and everything is done once it's installed. Tier matching here is the whole game. The most common mistake by a wide margin is buying Tier 1 for a Tier 2 problem. A facility manager who has a building-level issue and buys a cheap sensor hoping it will produce a building-level answer. And it can't. And 6 months later, they might conclude that sensors don't work, when what they actually learned is that one sensor in one room doesn't answer a whole building question. That's not a sensor failure. It's a tier mismatch. You've got the wrong tool for the job. The second most common mistake is committing to Tier 3 when you've got a Tier 2 problem. A well-intentioned consultant might tell a 40,000 square foot library that a full BAS is the correct answer, and the library either can't afford it or they commit to a massive construction project that's wildly out of scale for the problem. Neither mistake is really a failure of the product. Both are failures of tier selection. Spot sensors, fractional BAS, and full BAS. 3 tiers, 3 different scopes, 3 different price points. Match the tier to the questions you need to answer, not the other way around. If you want the next step, the full written comparison, the decision tree, and the cost ranges by building size, they're all on FractionalBAS.com. The next video in this series is on ground truth and why a data layer has to come before any capital project, regardless of which tier you choose. Thanks for watching.